Okay, so far this is the third type of definition as it pertains to clearance, this time specifically just door clearance, so we can focus on that. I've covered this in prior definitions, but in the sense of A through Z, let's just go over door clearance. Door clearance is going to be the margin between the edge of the door and the jamb, either on the jambs. At the header, clearance is absolutely a great word to use to talk about the distance from the bottom of the door to the top of whatever is there. Not the bottom of the jamb, that's undercut. Clearance is a different dimension. Undercut is what you start out with. Clearance is what you're left with if you brought flooring into the opening. Carpet, tile, hardwood, whatever it is. Sills, thresholds, anything that's there. So it's a really important kind of idea to wrap your head around in terms of what door clearance is, because, and this definition is going to end up being briefer because I just talked about this last week and I don't want to even hear me talk about it again. Door clearance is the dimension between the edge of the door on any of the four sides and whatever else there is that is surrounding it. The jamb, the floor, a transom bar, a mullion, a transition strip, whatever it might be. Clearance for the door, or door clearance, must exist in the sense that in high school science you learn that two things can't reside in the same place at the same time. And what a customer of mine said to me many years, decades ago, said, you can't put 10 pounds of sausage in a 10-pound bag. That just meant that two things can't reside in the same place at the same time. Initially, the difficult part comes from, in terms of wrapping your head around it, is what's the nominal size and what's the actual size. Your order size for hollow metal is the nominal size, 3070. Your actual size is not 3070. That's the 10 pounds of sausage in a 10-pound bag. The tape measure will always read less than the nominal size. So 30, we've all learned that that's feet plus inches. 3 foot is 36 inches plus 0 is 36 inch. So you measure the inside of the frame, that's 36. Your door has to be smaller because two things can't reside in the same place at the same time. The question is, what is the value of the door clearance? And door clearance doesn't have to be between the jambs or the header and the door edge. It could be from the face of the stop to the face of the door. It could be whatever that margin is inherent in manufacturing. It could be the inset. You've got, I wouldn't call it door clearance, but a hollow metal door and a hollow metal frame aren't typically flush, like aluminum storefront is sometimes, like residential wood doors are sometimes. And speaking of residential wood doors, nominal and actual still exist, but the rules are a little bit different. So if a customer tells you they've got a 36 by 80 wood door, it's very likely that the door actually measures 36 by 80. Very common. You still call it a 3068 as far as I know, but the inside dimension, the inside finished opening of the frame is certainly going to be bigger than 36 by 80. And the question becomes is, what is that door clearance? And I guess let's switch to the screen view and we'll fall back on my old crutch of showing you what it is. If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video. Okay, door clearance, C clearance, we're on page 11 of the 32 pages, and I had just done this design clearance. I just did this one, so let's scroll back up to clearance. Clearance, the floor and design or door edge. And this is really what I'm thinking of. How much room do you need to have there? Whether it be the jamb or the header or it be the sill. So let's go back to our old friend. So what we have here is we've got a jamb and we've got a circle, and that circle is representative of a point of rotation. And what we have is between this jamb and this jamb is 36 inch. And I've got a door that's partially rotated here. So let's ungroup all of this. Let's select the door and let's rotate. Now it's going to say give us a point, and I'm going to say that that's pretty accurate. So if I bring that You can see how the door rotates. Door clearance isn't super important on the hinge side. This door is 35 3/4 by 35 3/4. So it's a square edge door. I happen to know that. The point of the matter is it's square edge on the hinge side. I've got a 3-degree bevel on the lock side. The issue is it's the inside corner that we're really most concerned with. Meaning, let's ungroup the door. Now we've turned that into a square edge door. Okay, so with door clearance, what we're really concerned with is that corner right there. And the distance, or the difference between nominal size and finished opening size and net door size is really what the crucial part is. So let's grab our door. Let's select all the components of the door. Let's group it. Let's select it. Let's rotate it. Let's give it a vertical axis of pivoting. Now, when we go over here, that dimension has changed, the clearance dimension. That's pretty tight. That's actually quite tight. I believe this is going to be about 75 thousandths of an inch in here, would be my guess. Yeah, a little bit more, 80 thousandths. So that illustrates the fact that door clearance is really important because of how a door actually operates in the opening. You've got to have breathing room. You've got to have a hair's thickness of margin of allowance. And whether or not doors are square edge or beveled absolutely plays a role into it. The general rule of thumb, and this is probably why you're here, if you have square edge doors, you're going to have 1/8 of an inch pre-fit on each side. 1/8 of an inch here, 1/8 of an inch here. A 3/0 is going to be 35 3/4. If you've got beveled edge doors, 35 13/16 is common. The margin below the underside of the header to the top of the door is 1/8 of an inch. The undercut is 3/4 inch generally. The clearance can be anything. It can be 5/8. It can be 1/2 inch. It could be 1/4. It could be -1/4. You've poured the concrete too thick. Now the door doesn't open. The point of the matter is understanding that door clearance is something that is inherent in the design of doors and frames and hardware, and you have to be mindful of what is the door actually going to measure when I put a tape on the door. And those rules of thumb absolutely apply, but they don't have to be that because hardware and special circumstances will always require modifications to that. Here's an example. Just talked about beveled edge doors and square edge doors. Did you know that your typical BB 1279 is not the best choice for a beveled edge door? It's not. Because the leaf is straight. It's not swagged, bent to be parallel to the face of a 3-degree bevel on a door. McKinney has a beveled edged hinge. It costs a lot more, but it's the right hinge to use. And while you're really down into the minutia of 20 thousandths of an inch, the obligation of the door detailer is to always use the most correct solution. So clearance also has a lot to do with the hardware that you're using as well. If there's any questions about door clearance, feel free to reach out to me. I think I've touched on the basics, and what I'm trying to convey is it matters, it exists, you have to have it. Study the difference between finished opening or nominal size in the commercial world and the net door size. Always measure on the pull side of the door, because if it's beveled, that will be the wide side. That would be the small side. And then start to think about, why does that breathing room exist? We've illustrated why that breathing room has to exist right here. We got down to 80 thousandths of an inch. That's pretty tight. Thermal bowing, thermal swelling, it's going to be a problem. When it comes to pairs of doors, as they do show us here, yeah, you don't want to use a pair of 35 3/4 inch doors. Not unless you're using an astral that's going to fit inside of the two. So you're going to think about what that margin needs to be as well. I like 1/8 of an inch here. I like 1/8 of an inch here. I like 1/8 of an inch everywhere. That all works, but it can be 3/32. But 1/8 of an inch always just works. If you've got beveled edge doors, you use the right hinge, not the Same old hinge that we all use. Actually, since I've mentioned it a couple of times now, let me just tell you what that hinge is, because it does not come up often. I'll have to go to the McKinney catalog because I don't remember the part number. I think it's 44 something. TA2714. Yeah, right here. T4314 for beveled edge door. Well, if it's non-ferrous. If it's steel, T4714. That's the ticket right there. T4714. That's the right hinge you want to use. The bottom line is, I've got a video, if you search YouTube.
What is the difference between a hinge that's made for a square edge door versus a hinge that's meant for a beveled edge door? And it's a very common question that you're going to get on hinges when they are swing clear, when they are anchor style hinges. In the realm of just full mortise hinges, we very often just get away with the standard hinge. In this case, we're going to use McKinney as an example, the TA2714, and we're going to look at the...
Okay, so just called, what is the difference between a hinge meant for a square edge door versus a beveled edge door? You'll be able to just search that in YouTube. You'll certainly be able to find that. This video is a real deep dive into showing what that ultimate clearance is. That's what the two hinges kind of look like there. So in conclusion, you'll be able to find that video should you want to deep dive into it, which is related only in a peripheral sense. But we've brought it up, so here we go. Okay, the next definition is... door edge. Vertical surfaces of the door. Awesome. Awesome. Great. Let's dive into that. You got a couple of different door edges. Let's dive into it. Thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please click thumbs up. Please subscribe and maybe even send the video to someone that you know. Thank you.